Okay, you're good to go.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Bill Kanda, Custer County Commissioner. This is Wednesday, December the 8th, 2021, 9:02 in the morning. Or for our veterans that are present, it's 09:02. This meeting is in the Custer County Boardroom, and it is being recorded by our clerk as well as on Zoom. It is accessible and on YouTube. Please silence your phones. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. Let's please stand for the pledge. And with Chief Jolly in honor of Pearl Harbor Day yesterday, lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Kelly, roll call.
Commissioner Kanda,
Present.
Commissioner Flower,
Present.
Commissioner Day,
Present.
Attorney Clint Smith,
Present.
and Clerk to the Board Kelly Kemper present.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, audience introductions.
Kayla Day, Wetmore.
Thanks. And
Bob Jolly, Airport.
okay. And I'll introduce Reggie when she comes back.
Oh, okay. She walked all right. Tina Jones, BOCC.
Thanks. Okay, I do have an amendment. That's next, amendment to the agenda. Our OEM director was not able to, did not get back the resolution 2122 adoption of procedures for OEM federal grants. So we will, I would move that we strike that from the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to eliminate that last item for consideration of resolution 2122. We'll reschedule it when he's ready. Any other amendments, Kevin? Any thoughts?
No, I think we ought to take it.
You're asking for discussion?
No minutes on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Kanda, aye. I'm sorry. Okay, any other amendments?
No.
None here.
All right, thanks. And we do not have any minutes to approve. Commissioner items. Kevin, you're up first.
Nothing here.
Oh,
The only thing I have is, wanted to follow up on something from yesterday that you said. As what I think I heard you say was that you talked to Christy Dune and she told you that they were pulling the $1 million DOLA grant fund for broadband.
yeah, she told me that they could see there's not enough time to get the thing to occur. And they were gonna pull that and then apply for another one, is what she said. And she said she'd send us some email. I haven't seen any emails yet from her on that, so we'll just stand by.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Also, I had two things, just real quick. We can either do it at the end of the meeting or now, but we need to schedule up the Justice Center discussion on the way forward. They do want to do that. There's no official committee, but there is the committee or the advertising, whatever it was that was left over, and Ann Barther had that. And she was going to pull together the people to come to our workshop that we want to have. So you want to try to take a look at the calendar now? Wouldn't be a bad idea. And that there was a discussion to have it on the 17th, but I don't think Shannon was available. So probably I'll pull it off the 17th. I know I have a staff meeting on the 17th afternoon. But I think the 14th could be a doable do. And help us get a window, and maybe the, I hate to put it in that Christmas vacation week, but the 20th. So it's doable.
Is that when we're out of town?
I was gonna be out of town on the 14th.
So,
You are.
and
Well,
we're coming back
I would
Thursday.
actually work better
13th.
on the 20th or 21st. I was gonna be gone the first part of that week.
13th through the 17th.
The 13th is probably okay, but the 20th, 21st would work. You said you're gonna,
The 20th or 21st would work better for me.
Tom, what do you think?
I've got an opioid meeting from 2 to 4 on the 21st. And I should be available.
At what
20th
time?
Or the 21st. That opioid meeting is from 2 to 4.
Okay, so we could look at on the 20th and the morning of the 21st. Well, let me propose that so and see what we get. That sound reasonable?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, and we'll have to have, as soon as we get approval, it'll be the 20th or 21st, and then you will post that as a workshop.
21st would be a morning only. 20th, I think we were all good.
Yeah.
Morning or afternoon.
Okay. So that's Justice Center. Other question I had, Tina, did you see the email? It was an urgent one from Carmel to get you were copied on.
I talked to him
And
yesterday
Kathy,
and he got the information he needed.
Okay, so we're good.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. That was getting addresses for one of the contractors that are bidding on it. Okay, that's all I had. Clint?
I'm going to request an executive session today based on some action that the Board of Health took on Monday. But I need to talk to you. It can be done in the BOCC meeting,
Oh, okay,
but I do need to have Reggie here, and I would like to have Dr. Brown here as well.
okay. We don't have to vote on that.
No, I just, you're willing to put it on, or
Right, you
go ahead
certainly.
and hold an executive session. I need to talk to you about some developments that have occurred since then.
Okay,
Would you like Tina to reach out to Dr. Brown?
Yeah, be sure that he can make it here, and we can do, I guess, anytime.
it'll be this morning sometime. After probably 10:30. That all you have?
That's it.
You haven't had your hands in anybody else's business?
That's what we do for a living,
Okay.
but they usually come back all bloody and shredded.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Tina,
I don't have anything for today. Thank you.
okay, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Okay, just for the record, we got Adrian back in here. And public comment, we got an opportunity, anybody here to, that came up that we might want to address at some point.
Deb Adams has a hand raised.
Okay, put Deb on.
Good morning, gentlemen. I didn't get an opportunity to get an answer yesterday, so I'm asking again today if any of you have filled out that survey that I sent an email to you.
I did start it, I haven't finished it, Debbie. And,
Yeah, it's kind of a long survey, but I just want you to, I want to encourage you to reply. In talking to the person who's doing it, kind of a sad statement, he has, last year, he sent out an email to 190 county commissioners, 190. And out of the 190, he only got 17 replies. So I believe this survey is doing quite well in Custer County. It's going to reveal some of our weaknesses as well as our strengths. And I think as leaders of the community that you should sort of know what is going on. The other thing I want to ask about, the public notice in the paper about looking for people to volunteer. I'm actually, I have a letter that will supposedly be published in both the Tribune and the Sentinel, if they take it. But it is about volunteerism. And the question that I have is, if anywhere on the county website are there descriptions of what is involved in serving on any of the boards, committees, or commissions?
None that I am aware of. That would be a good item. Maybe let Reggie take a look at it. That's a good thing, probably. That is a good idea. Just to
Yeah.
know there's more to the county than a board of commissioners.
Okay,
And
so we'll see you about 10:15.
Yeah, so in my letter to the editor, I mean, I basically plucked the public notice, and then I just say that it's easy to ask, it's easy to ask a volunteer who is already serving, but based on the meeting yesterday and the public input with the situation with Jackie, I mean, there were a lot of people there, but then after the question was addressed, everyone left. And I think it would be very a positive move with the community if people got more involved with all the different things that are going on. And this is very much a community that relies on volunteers. But if you don't have the information out there to either encourage them or inspire them, maybe the county is just spinning their wheels. So I would highly suggest if Reggie could get that on the county website, it might help. I don't know whether my letter will help, but I'd really just like to see more people involved in the governance of the county.
okay, yeah, good point. Thanks. On that first point, I will talk with the second point, I guess. I'll talk to Reggie. On the first point, surveys are always a drag. Surveys are always a drag during election time, and surveys are a drag near Christmas. And so, last night I had 3 calls for a survey on who would you vote for if the election was held today, kind of stuff. And so people tend to get numb. So why don't you resend what you sent, Eddie? Because I think when you send it, it's deep in the email. I got 18,000 emails, literally, but not that I can't find it. My point is, get it. You might want to just who else would be applying? So
Yeah, I'm happy to send it again. It's going to be closing soon. I believe he will have a final report around December 14th. So I will send it again today, and then I'll just let it be. But I really think the results of the survey are just going to be very enlightening to everyone involved in the community.
was it also to the municipalities?
I believe it went out to a lot of people. I mean, I posted it on the community pages, and then the email that I sent to you, I basically went on your website and hit all the email addresses of all the people that are employed by the county. And I do believe he is getting quite a good response. And also, of the 3 men who were involved in the survey, one of them does live here on a part-time basis.
Okay, send it to the 2 mayors and us.
Will do, Bill.
All right. Thanks for your help and your input.
All right. Have a good day.
You
Yeah,
too.
I have a question for you, Debbie.
Yes, sir.
I looked in my computer high and low, and I cannot find an email from you or from McPhee. Was that his name?
Yes, McPhee is his name.
Yeah.
I want to ask Kevin, did you?
I have filled it out. Yes, I had it.
I just cannot find it, Debbie.
It came from Deb.
I'll send it again. I'll send it again to Kevin. I'm going to send it to you again just because you're part of the 3, and I'll also send it to Buck Wenzel and Paul. I'm pretty sure they have received it, but it doesn't hurt to try one more time because it will be closing soon.
Copy the 2 clerks.
Yeah, I did a search with your name, and I just can't come up with it.
No problem. You're buried in emails.
Sometimes it goes to the pit too.
Yeah. No, I'll send it again in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Seems to go to the.
Okay, thank you.
Random, I don't know what they use to screen them, but it's crazy what goes in there. Some of them should go in there and it doesn't.
Came in 12-1. Tom,
I don't have it under tourism. I don't have it under.
Okay, staff reports.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Tom. Chief, you ready?
I'm as ready as I'm gonna get.
Man, you are.
I've been,
You have the honor of keeping us on schedule.
okay. I'll make this
No
short. and
pressure.
sweet.
By the way, let me caveat that, because I don't think everybody knows. Some of the members have COVID. That's why Bob's here. And I think Brian's got in-laws, or not in-laws, but he's tied up on
Yeah, he's out of town or
out of town.
indisposed or
So
whatever.
he is the last man standing, so let's hear it.
And I've been out of town myself. I just got back day before yesterday.
Oh, my gosh.
So I've been visiting with grandkids down in New Mexico.
Good.
But anyway, November fuel sales. We sold 593.9 gallons. Revenue was $2,963.54. And we still have 1,675 gallons in the fuel tank. And Bob wanted me to bring up the status of the new fuel tank. The concrete pad is in, finished, and we've made provisions for wiring or whatever may need to be added when it gets here.
So you got a conduit coming out of the fan.
Yeah, we've got two conduits, for electricity or whatever else we may need.
Right.
And speaking of the new tank, the new delivery date is now February 2022.
That'll be fun putting it in then.
And they say it's because of supply chain issues and COVID. Of course, there's a lot of issues with supply chain, and I can buy that, but this issue with COVID, a lot of people have it, a lot of people have been sick, but it seems like everybody is using that for a
Excuse
excuse for not getting
for a vacation.
But anyway, Bob said he's going to be in contact with the manufacturer and keep you all up to date on what's going on with that.
Okay.
And we just had a state of Colorado fuel inspection, and the results of that inspection are posted in the airport, and we passed with 100%. And that's about all we have.
Okay, appreciate that. I talked to Bob, seems to be doing okay. He said he's okay.
He's getting better. His family and my family were supposed to get together for Thanksgiving, and about 2 days before, he really got sick.
Yeah, he's
So
feeling pretty bad. And he hadn't been to jail, so we know it's not caused by that outbreak there. Okay, thank you. And you win the prize. You did that in 5 minutes.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, well, all right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks for coming in.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Somebody had to come in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm glad you're feeling well.
You might inherit the job full time.
You gotta be careful showing up.
Yeah. I might be.
You quit, remember? You retired, remember?
Have a good day.
You do.
Virginia does not have a report. IT does not have a report. HR Finance will be over shortly. Would you guys like to move to the OEM?
Yeah, since he's here. Why not?
Right, I'll do it from here.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Thanks.
We have my report for December, November. If I was to use I guess to sum up my November, it would be frustrating. I've been going through audits and audits and audits and audits and reviews of audits and reviews of the EMPG program. And many of the things they're not new to me, but it brings to light a totally different light, if you will, when you are being audited and people are asking for documentation and documentation and documentation. If you have reviewed the audit letter that we received for November 18th, many of the things in the letter are things that I have some control over, but I don't have total control over because I cannot write policies and procedures for the county. And so last Friday, we submitted probably 40 pieces of documentation to try to address some of these things. And the state has that, but we have not received a response. That's why we can't really write a resolution, because we're not certain how they're going to receive the response to the things that we addressed. And then they have said, well, slow down a little bit. Let us get through the responses to what you've given us to see where we are before you start writing new policies and procedures.
So the documents are what qualifies us for the grant. They're just checking to see if we've been doing what they've been giving us a month for. Is that
Well, they're looking at that. That's part of it. They look at the documentation. They want copies of every invoice. So when you submit your documents down, you have to submit a copy of the invoices that you are requesting reimbursement for. The state process, when you actually read the EMPG grant, it takes longer. So you can submit your stuff in January, but you might not get anything back from the state until September, October. It says that in the grant letter. So you would think that if you submit a reimbursement request that you might get the reimbursement check sooner, but the documentation clearly shows that that's not the way the state works. So it's a more complicated process, but the purpose of it is to prepare us for the federal audit that happens. So this really isn't an audit. It's make sure you have your ducks in a row so that when the federal government audits you, you can get through it effectively. So they're not against us. They're actually for us. They're trying to support us to make sure that we have everything we need to prepare for that federal audit. But it's a frustrating thing. Frustrating from the perspective that I wasn't here in the beginning of 2020, and I surely wasn't here in 2019 and 2020. And a lot of this audit refers to past EMPG, grants and contracts. But I can say that while frustrated, I am a whole lot smarter today than I was, a month ago in terms of the policies and procedures that are referred to specifically the EMPG grant, but it also affects the Homeland Security grant. It affects the Hazard Mitigation grant. And they suggest that if we go through this process of making sure that our ducks are in a row, it will help us if they were to, let's say, audit the sheriff's office or the social services office or public health department or any of the county agencies that receive grants and fundings from the state or federal government. So while they are looking at my program, specifically the EMPG program, and for people listening, that is the emergency preparedness grant, it can affect the county and other areas as well, these policies and procedures. So we have addressed all 12 items in the letter that I sent you folks a copy of on the 18th of November. There are some things that until they respond, we can't really
do anything. So we're kind of in a pause phase right now until they respond to the information that we sent them. And we discovered in the process, and I say we because Deb Adams mentioned volunteers. Gina's an excellent volunteer. She actually worked for the government, federal government, that did these kind of audits and inspections. So she really up to speed on that. So it's a blessing to have her because she really understands this whole audit process. There are things that we submitted that should take care of some of these questions. There's other questions I'm certain that will come over. We'll be going over the 2022 grant virtually this afternoon to make sure all of those things are aligned. There's one thing that really is critical, and I sent that to Vernon, is this cybersecurity portion of the grant. Under the 2022 grant, if we have not completed that assessment by December 31st, we are disqualified for the MPG. Once again, I cannot tell another manager, you must get this assessment, but Vernon did assure me he would have it done by December 12th. But if we do not complete that assessment, and it happens every year, then it can make us ineligible to receive any kind of EMPG grant funding.
So he's filled it out before. He's made an assessment if we do it every year.
I believe he did it in 2020 and 2019. So it builds upon when you put it in those years. But once again, it's not something that I can just go online and fill out the documents. I have to rely on other staff to be able to do these things.
That's why it's called a team.
That's why it's called a team. And so sometimes you get a little pushy, when you're.
Which I've never known you to be pushy.
Oh, thank you for saying that. But sometimes we have to move. And that's one of those things. So it's frustrating, but it's learning. And I guess if you're learning how to do something, you're going to get a little bit frustrated sometimes. But in the report, I just want to point out that today, including what we have in the EMPG reimbursement, that totally we're about $57,000 in funding that should come back to the county at some point in the process.
It's good to know.
We have received no reimbursement from the state in EMPG for the year. And by the end of the fiscal year, we will be somewhere around 38,000.
So that's 80,000 total, roughly. So the total reimbursement is going to be what? That we expect.
From EMPG, it'll be about 38,000.
Yeah.
That's after the 50%. And the other part of that amounts to the 57,000 is when we receive reimbursement for the federal government's portion of the hazard mitigation plan division.
So it is roughly 80,000 total.
No,
This is 50, then the 30 is part of that. Is that what you're saying?
it's 57,000 for both programs.
Okay, I got you.
So it's a 50-50 and it's a 75-25 for the HMP.
I get it. I just wanted to know what the treasury is going to be plus stuff. You said 57.
It'll be around 57.
Okay.
And I'm rounding.
Okay.
And then finally, I just want to mention that we will have a HMP workshop on the 16th, the evening of the 16th. We're going to do a small mill on that date, and that'll be at Lang Hall. It will also be Zoom, and we'll be using the county Zoom link to Zoom in on it. So if you can't make it physically, then you can listen in remotely by phone or through Zoom.
What day is that?
That will be the 16th.
Oh,
The
60.
16th is a Thursday afternoon, if I'm right.
Yeah, I got it.
So that'll be from about, we'll open the building up around 5, we'll run from about 5 to 7. And then we'll have a workshop for the strategic committee on the 17th, which is the following day. But if the commissioners are there on the 16th, we'll take your input at that time. There's no reason necessarily for you to be there on the the 17th.
So 5:30 is your hemp. You gotta do something with that acronym, the HMP revision.
I don't get hemp out of that. Nevertheless,
It sort of looked like it to me.
so it'll be kind of a working, eating workshop. We find that if folks can have a meal, then they're likely to come. We're posting that throughout town. There's press releases in this week's paper, and it should appear also in next week's paper.
So you're bringing food, or you're inviting people to bring their
No,
own?
we're going to prepare something.
We are.
A very simple meal. That's part of our reimbursement. Feed them, they'll come.
And my question is, the dogs,
I will not be dogs because then I have to bring brats, but we're going to do something simple. But it'll be good. It'll be a good dinner.
So I've written down in my calendar, the OEM communications meeting. That's not accurate. What is the title of that?
Of this meeting,
16th.
it's a hazard mitigation plan workshop.
Reviewing the plan or?
Just where we are, basically, we're seeking public input on specific terms. We posted on the county website and in other venues where we are in the plan process. Is a public plan, and we just want to make certain that the public realizes that they're part of the process.
Okay, that's good. Good deal. Good.
That's all.
Any other questions for Adrian?
Well, I just wanted to say, I sat in on that Zoom meeting and I don't envy you. I think those folks, particularly the two ladies' heart was in the right place. They were asking some pretty tough questions. And I just found myself thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have to dig that information out of somewhere else, other department. Be different if that was all your record keeping, but it's not. And so I understand what you're saying. But it appears that you are on the right track and you definitely have a relationship with them. And so appreciate your work there.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, that's all I have.
thank you, sir.
Thanks. Just in time too, because Braden's up. You got any report for us besides, we're not talking the consideration?
Defer to.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, and Virginia did, we know IT isn't, so I think that closes that out. Reggie, you were gone and we were gonna ask you to work with Debbie Adams to get she had a good suggestion on putting what boards, what volunteer positions, what kind of things the county has to look for people to have some to serve the county. That would be good PR for the county, and it would be a good thing to get in not just the website. It's even if we have to pay an ad, it's probably you be able to let us see it to consider doing.
Okay.
And,
Well, that might actually fall under a quote unquote job description, would it not? The duties of volunteers in different. Would we have any of that on file that Vernon would be able to possibly find or not?
or maybe Braden as the HR guy.
Yeah, I guess so.
Job description.
For all the boards, volunteers, or maybe even Tina, the charters and minutes, or not minutes, but
Maybe the boards themselves.
the boards should have their own handbook of who they are and what they do, but some of them may not.
I can check on my side.
Okay.
In your spare time.
Question
Sure.
directed towards Braden. How long do you anticipate this budget agenda item to last?
There are two things that I had forgotten to go along with this, two resolutions, which I do have ready to go. But other than that, it's
it would just be in answering any questions that you all have. I can go through the summaries and such. I don't anticipate it to take.
The reason I asked, Mr. Chairman, was I anticipated this budget approval being a half an hour, 45-minute ordeal. I wondered if
Want to do it at the end or
we
something?
could move that to the end. I know there's people online for the other item.
It's a good idea, actually.
I don't want to impugn your time either. I think we need to do a little deep dive on some of this budget thing and just a suggestion.
Yeah, fine. I think it would be great,
I would
actually.
be good with that.
So I would move we amend the agenda and move consideration of the 2022 budget approval to the last item under new business.
Okay, I'll second it. Been moved and seconded to move that agenda item 2022 budget approval down to the last item. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Canned aye.
Thanks Greg, for being understanding there.
Okay, Jared?
Yes, sir.
Jared's here, that just for the record, because you're a new visitor now. Is there something we can do for you now before we go into?
This is for an agenda item, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that was the other reason.
Nope, no other reason. Yep.
Okay.
All good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, let's move on then. It's good. We're on time. So any unfinished business to be voted on? I don't have any.
No.
Tom?
Sir.
Okay. All right, let's move on into it then. So that would bring up why Jared's here, and I bet is Tracy online?
Yes, she is.
Can you hear us, Tracy?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good. All
Okay,
right.
great.
We will consider setting a deadline for my Mother Hubbard's cupboard.
You guys already set a deadline?
Well, that's what I want.
Okay.
We'll get into it. And to vacate the VSO annex building, just to finish the thought. So with that, Kelly has a point to make. We did discuss this, and what the outcome was they would.
August 31st was their deadline.
To
And
my understanding, it was going to be revisited on August 31st, but it wasn't a set in stone deadline.
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
I've got the.
I'm going to say you looked up the motion, correct? Could you read that to us, please? Sorry, I figured that's what you were mining out of that notebook.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second, Tracy, Kelly's pulling up the.
it's not an impugnment of anything. It's just a staking of get things squared out and then figure out how we move forward.
Oh, absolutely.
It was motion by Commissioner Kanda to accept Tracy's proposal as presented with an end date of August 31st,
Yeah.
2021.
So, and August 31st, I don't know, we were pretty busy, I guess, because, and Jared probably, were you around when you were around?
When that was, I don't believe so. I guess you were no date on.
So that's,
You were August, but you just didn't know about it.
you didn't know about.
Oh, but I wasn't there when the original.
No, that's my point, is you weren't aware.
No.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So, it's just turnover and a lot of things have happened. So we got the players in the room now. So go ahead and, have you got a proposal for us to think about?
I mean, not really. I mean, I'm not here to, I don't want to debate the merits of the food bank or the good that they do for the community. And I don't really want to get drawn into a conversation or
No, that's good.
necessarily
That's a
around
good
that.
point. It's all about,
My only proposal is maybe they do find a new location, just due to the fact that I think that presence is beginning to impact my ability to fully service the veteran community.
and Tracy, from your point of view, you appreciate, I know you appreciate being there, and it is an impingement on you too, because it's tough going up and down those stairs and doing anything, trying to be polite while you're doing it.
Well, what we try to do is make sure that we're there very little so that we are not in Jared's space. And there's just been a couple of issues that arose. And I guess there was a veteran that expressed being uncomfortable that a food bank is even there. There's because of I'm assuming during the Thanksgiving basket, us putting those together. And there are some issues with that character as to why he has an issue with that, but I'm not going into that right now. So like I said, in my proposal, if he has a problem or veterans have a problem with it being there, is we could move our one-time distribution in the meantime until we find a new building to just Saturdays from 10 to 2. So, and we would eliminate the Wednesdays from 4 to 6. And we could start that next week if that would help, until we do get a new location. Because we are trying to find one, but the rental situation in the county is just absolutely terrible, as we all know.
Okay, right. So let's keep focused then. That's between you and Jared to work out how you would be less hurtful to that. Let's look at what kind of options there are for how far out the deadline ought to be and agree that we ought to shoot for that with earnest effort. So what do you think? I mean, rentals, I know are, and how big a building do you need? That sort of plays into it. And the rental properties around here, there's not a premium of them, a lot of them around. So what are your thoughts, Jared?
On a deadline?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's obviously up to you. I mean, I would say sooner rather than later.
It's up to us, but we need your input along with Tracy's on what's a reasonable deadline. I could pick a deadline, get out of there for 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's my responsibility to choose like a deadline for her to exit. I don't really want to put that on my shoulders.
No, but that's a discussion between you and her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
right now.
Like I said, I would rather rip that Band-Aid. I mean, I don't want to kick her to the street. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to take food out of veterans' mouths or individuals' mouths or anything along those lines. I guess what I don't want to happen is to just kick the can down the road and then just keep kicking that.
But if we set it and we know, and we are all focused on helping get to that date is what I'm looking for. And we need Tracy to look at what's reasonable. And of course, we all recognize it could change, because if you can't find a place to go to, what are you going to do? I mean, we got to keep working together. And I think it's possible to get moving.
Yeah.
I would suggest maybe the end of January.
Oh, sorry.
Well, did you just hiccup?
I was thinking March.
Well, that's what we want to get on the floor. What and the reasons why, and then we can negotiate that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, since I wasn't here for the last motion, if an August 31st deadline was supposed to be upheld, and obviously it wasn't, I think that probably would warrant maybe a quicker departure.
To look for.
Yeah.
That's 3 months away. If March, it's 1 month away if it's January.
Yeah.
You want to.
But if there was an August 31st deadline too, then that's been many months now that they could have been looking.
Don't look backward, Jared. I agree. But part of that was because our attention, and my attention anyway, was diverted on a lot of other things. Heck, I'd even forgotten about that being a resolution, because everything was being delivered. We were doing other things. But because of things have changed, the VSO has improved. It's gotten busier, it's gotten different, and it warrants action. So I think that Tom, you had a good suggestion. We need to keep the heat on, but over the holidays, it's going to be hard. And I don't know that the rental picture is going to change much between then, and it might be better another month. Maybe it's February.
Okay.
Is to give time to look. It's going to be hard to do it over a holiday season for her.
May I also add that for the most part, we are only there after hours, number one. Number two, it's not just the VSO that is in this building. The American Legion also has space. The VFW also has space. The coroner has space, and so does the sheriff's office.
Mhm.
So there are multiple entities that use this building. It is not just the VSO building.
Okay, that, good point. We know, we're aware of that, Tracy, but we're not competing. The point that you made that is significant is you're going to do it with nobody in the building. That's a good point. I think very recently that's been an issue because they were there when you were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I think it also goes beyond just people being in the building too. If, and I'm not gonna, I don't really want to get into
I understand
list of items necessarily, but you know, even if
the appearance.
and even if they're not there necessarily, it still takes time out of my day if I have to come in and clean up after the food bank. If I got to throw boxes away.
Well, that's the point that you
away
need to do with Tracy, that she shouldn't leave stuff there.
And yeah, I mean, we've had that
Okay,
conversation.
okay.
Yes, I have addressed his issues, and I spoke with volunteers about making sure that everything was tidied up after they left. And there were some issues recently with 2 turkey baskets that I was assured by these 2 veterans that they would come and pick them up, and they did not. And I was not notified before the holiday because I was wanting to make sure and stay out of his space to you know, let them know, hey, you got to pick these up, or we need to put these away or something. And I was not called or anything or notified, and I would have been able to solve that situation. So when he came back in, the stench of rotten food wasn't there.
Was there for him? Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
But he said that wasn't part of his job description to call me and let me know.
It's not.
So I mean, it was just.
I hear you, Tracy. That's okay. Just stick to the facts. That's all right. It did happen.
It
And we
is.
know why. So, well, I have an idea, but Kevin, have you got something before I don't want to do all
I'll
of
defer
it.
to Tom at this time, and then I have a question.
Okay, I didn't
Thank you,
see.
sir. I would move we set the second deadline for them to be out January 31st, 2022.
If I may go ahead and ask my question before I would move with that.
Go ahead. We could move it and then vote it in or out, but if there's some other proposal, or a compromise, what's your thought?
Tracy, where are you at in regards to finding a new location? Because it has been, the initial time was, I forget when that motion was made.
August 31st.
That was the deadline, but when did we do that?
February 17th.
It was February when we set that.
Right. No, I realize and acknowledge it's been a while. And it's been longer than we have wanted as well, but it's hard to find space. And I mean, if it comes down to it and the vote is, you know, out at January, then what we'll do is we will end up closing the cupboard if we can't find a space. And we will just concentrate on our mobile markets, but we won't be able to, you know, serve the veterans and other community members right now until we do find a space, to be honest.
Okay, let's continue your thought, Kevin.
And I don't know if this makes any difference to either side. We have a January 31st that has been moved. We have a the end of March proposed. I would put forth splitting the difference on that and making it at the end of February. And that would be a solid deadline.
That's Just a discussion, that's a good compromise and be a hard line on moving out.
And I would make sure that we were all aware that it would be a solid deadline. I understand your frustration in trying to find a new place, Tracy, as well, but the service you do is a great service, and I witnessed that the other day when I came up, and I realized the need and everything like that. And part of that is what is actually detrimental to the fact that you guys are having to share this space because of the amount that you do. It does infringe upon the other people that are needing that building, per se, the VSO. And so I would propose, I guess that would be my proposal, to make it a hard deadline for the end of February.
You could consider amending your motion, Tom, if you think that help.
What are your thoughts on that, sir?
I wanted to ask you the same question. I'm not sure it's a fair question. That's why I hesitated.
Yeah.
I realize that it's not a good solution.
Only way I'll support that is if our BSO officer is willing to go on the lam for another 12 weeks, and that's how long it is.
That's true.
I mean, as long as that's a hard deadline, I mean, I don't want to be unreasonable at all. And I think that I've been very professional and courteous to Tracy in the conversations that we have had, because I do believe that I'm justified to come in here and say, I want her out today. And I think because I was entrusted to help a very specific population of this county, and if I bring that to you, that something is starting to impede that, then I think that carries more weight than a private entity that is essentially being subsidized by the government.
Well,
But I'm not, but I'm willing to, you know, to compromise with that.
That is a veterans building, basically.
Yeah, and I understand that's not just
County has set that up.
my office.
No,
I don't.
No, you're a major part of it.
Yeah.
So you are being, it's more than just you're supporting, it's the veteran services up here that are impacted. And Tracy, I know, has been working hard at trying to do the best she can.
Absolutely.
And believe me, I heard Kevin's report. We all did when he saw the line of food banks going, or people going clear down Highway 69 or whatever.
100%. Like, so this isn't a referendum on her,
No.
the merit of the service that
That's
they
right.
provide in any shape or form. And I don't want it to be taken.
Right. And then
That way
we
at
would
all.
certainly support her and her other endeavors to get this started as soon as we can, because that impacts the county human services at the big
100%.
picture.
100%.
She does. So that would be our commitment, mine anyway, to go forward.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, that will withdraw that, and you want to move yours, Ken?
I move that my neighbors covered will be allowed to continue in the VSO office building until the last day of February 2022. And at that point, they need to be to vacate the premises.
Okay, I'll second that. And the discussion's been moved and seconded to allow Mother's covered. I'm my kid at heart, to stay in the VSO building until the last day of February, in which time a hard deadline is in effect that they have to be vacated. Any discussion, other discussion?
I do, sir. If I may.
Go ahead.
I'll direct my discussion to Tracy. Can you hear me okay, Tracy?
Yes, I can.
I thought about this. I wonder if Fred and Sharon's old hardware store building across from Napa, the brown building on the corner on Second Street.
Yes.
I cannot think of his name that owned that building. I just saw him yesterday here in the courthouse.
Yeah, it's empty. I mean,
Just as a suggestion, I know it's tough if we set these deadlines and don't try to be of any assistance. I don't know what efforts have been made since August to now or February to now, but that may be a possibility. I just threw that out.
Thank you. I'll look into that definitely. And I do just want to say for the record also that Jared has been more than fair, and I do appreciate that. And we have had some good discussions and so forth. And I have tried desperately to address those, but I understand we have gone past the August 31st deadline. I thought that was we will revisit it deadline, or else I would have addressed it a lot sooner, more diligently than I have, to be honest. But I just wanted to say that for the record, that I do really appreciate being able to use that space and so forth, and for Jared's patience and understanding as well.
Yeah, that goes both ways. He said, if you didn't hear it, and I think that was great for the record. Thanks. All right, any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to say, and again, I have nothing but kudos to both of you individuals. That being said, the scope of work for both of you at some point becomes somewhat incompatible, and that is why we need to take this action. And it's not to say that either operation is not important. I have not only witnessed your stuff that you do, Tracy, but I have witnessed firsthand a lot of the work that Jared does, and I would not want to impede that in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely, I agree.
So that is my comment.
And I have no hard feelings whatsoever for anyone. I completely understand, and I think the February 28 deadline, it's not a leap year, is it? No. The February 28 deadline is more than fair.
I wasn't sure either. That's why I did not put a date on it.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. Just
I think the leap year was last year.
Yeah.
It's February 28th.
Question in the back.
Reggie Foster, PIO. I do have a question. What are the needs? Is there a square footage need that we're communicating to people? Is it, what exactly are you looking for, Tracy?
Space to be able to house the food and the food that we have in the back as well. Right now we're using a storage room, and we're also using part of the American Legion Auxiliary room as well.
So how big is that? How many square feet?
I wouldn't even know.
Take a guess. Is it 30 by 30 or 20 by 20? Just roughly, because that impacts ideas that people have to find buildings for you.
Maybe 30 by 30.
Okay, that's the size of one of the hangars out at the airport, just so you can.
Okay, then 20 by 20.
That's what I thought.
I am such a bad judge of measurement.
I'm sorry.
Say again, Reggie's got to, go ahead, Reggie.
Does it need to be a climate controlled space, or is it just storage?
Does it need to?
It should be climate
freeze?
control. It should be climate control with our canned goods and so forth.
Okay, so we get that out, get the PR going on that. I'm glad to know this, because if I'm around and I see a building, well, just like Tom did, that's a good point. And anybody else that's heard this meeting or that we can put highlights on this. Okay, any other points? All right, let's vote. All in favor of allowing the mothers covered, my neighbors covered, to stay until the end of February, a hard date to move out. Say aye, Tom.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Kanda, aye. Good job, both of you.
Yeah, we're all just
you.
trying to better our community at the end of the day. So
So understand. Both
I
are
would
doing a
like to
great job.
thank both of you for being flexible and trying to work this out.
thank you guys.
Thank you, Jared.
Good to see you. Thank you, Tracy.
I'm sorry.
See you later.
See you, sir. Thanks, sir. Good to see you.
I guess I could read that instead of trying to guess it was mother covered or not.
That was kind of cute.
Don't encourage him.
Good point, Kevin.
All right, up next, consideration of a liquor license for Alpine Lodge. Application by Richard Kassenbeck. And you want to present them, Kelly?
Yes, and so this isn't as straightforward as it usually is. Richard came to me back in October and said he hadn't got his renewal yet. Since his renewal is up the end of the year, and it's due November 11th, I believe. And so I told him to contact Department of Revenue, and maybe it got lost in the mail or whatever. And they said no, that they were just getting ready to send them out because they were waiving the fees this year.
Oh,
So he did not receive that until last week.
he got the waiver.
Got the application.
Oh, got the application?
Yes. So he filled it out, brought it in last week. I was on vacation. Got it Monday. It was missing a signature page, and it was missing this tax check authorization form that they usually do. So I called him. He said that they didn't mail those with it. So I got a hold of Department of Revenue. I've been going back and forth with them the last couple of days. Finally got the signature page this morning. So that's why it's not signed by Richard. The state, because of Senate Bill 20B-001, which you can see on the top right-hand corner of that,
Mhm.
the state, actually it was Governor Polis, waived, that Senate bill has to do with COVID and small business.
Sure, they were
how
trying to
hurt. Yeah,
not-
they were trying
not
to,
hammer.
yes. So Governor Polis waived their fees on this. They are only waiving the fees until December 8th, which is
That's today.
Mhm. So,
So will they take action today and acknowledge they? did?
yes, I made sure that if you guys approve that today, that he still will get that fee waived, and they said, yes, that was fine. So I just have to get him to sign it. Since I got that form this morning, I could not get a hold of him to get him to sign it, so. And then the second part of that is the state fee is $500. The county fee is $100. He did not leave a check for the county fee because he wasn't sure about the waiver thing and how that worked. And I said, the state said the county fees are up to you guys. I told Richard I would present that to you guys. He said he is more than willing to pay the county fee. So
You come in
There it
today or
is.
tomorrow or whenever to get it.
Yes.
Okay.
yes. So I guess my thing
So we
is
would,
about the county fee and then approving the license itself today.
so you would
Even
like
though
to
he
see a
doesn't-
motion
Sure.
to accept this application and have it sent to the state. Now, he has to come in and sign that in order to. do
Yes,
that.
he would have to come in
So he can come
and
in
I
and
can get a
take it
hold of
too,
him
so-
today to,
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And knowing that the fee, it's due today and that payment for the county, we don't have to discuss getting it later or not, it'll be done today.
Yeah,
And.
yeah. If you guys decide you want the payment, he'll bring that check in. If you don't, then he won't.
So because of COVID, we waived the fees, but we didn't send any of the paperwork in a timely manner for anyone
Yes.
to benefit from the waiver.
That's right, it was, they sent it to everybody, so it's due the day to get it. So that's a caging maneuver.
Yeah.
Well, let's waive all the fees and not give anybody time to actually send it in and get, so we can give it to them.
Well, and I'll blame part of that on the mail too, because the mail timing is horrendous these days. They may have mailed that a month ago. Who knows?
So our county fee is $100.
Yes,
They're waiving the 500.
they're waiving the 500, yes.
Well, I happen to know the gentleman. I believe he'd be trustworthy to come in and pay his money.
Yeah, so do I.
Certainly odd circumstances around.
And I know you know him.
But
All right,
Yes.
I got a motion from anybody? We'll be bashful. I'll do it.
I move that we accept the renewal of the liquor license for the Alpine Lodge.
second,
Okay, we move and seconded to accept the renewal of the liquor license for the Alpine Lodge. Any other discussion?
I'm assuming Kelly is good with the whole process. Correct.
Okay, anything else? All in favor of accepting the liquor license renewal for Alpine Lodge as discussed, say aye. Tom?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And aye.
And so you do want him to pay the fee?
Yeah,
Did you sign that?
I didn't know I was supposed to.
Yes.
I thought it was
believe
just
that,
between you and him.
I think you're in the bottom box.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm good to continue on. Anybody else want to take a break right now, or we want to dive into the man with the suitcase full of budget paper?
Could you tolerate a couple minute bathroom break?
All right, let's take 5, guys.
I just wanted to make sure we were paying enough. Yeah. Well, thank you.
You got it? Okay. All right, we're back from our break. It's 17 after the hour, and next up on the agenda is consideration of the 2022 budget. And I got Braden Wilson here to discuss that, so kick it off.
All right. Here we are at last, hopefully. 2022 annual budget is in draft form. I just sent the compiled, I'd sent earlier today the 27 different files. This one is now compiled into one that has a table of contents that matches the pages and page numbers. It's also searchable, which has not been the case before.
Really great.
So you can hit Control F and find whatever you need to within this document. So
Hold on.
Yeah.
Can you forward that? to
Yep,
us?
it's coming your way.
Document. Thank you.
Kelly, too.
Got it.
Tina has to be referenced on everything.
Yes, I know this. In fact, when I put in my group of commissioners, she's included in it already. So
Actually, she is.
Thank you, I appreciate
It's
it.
there now. You already have it.
Oh,
He's not-
yeah, it just popped up.
What he's not telling you is that she's got line number 1.
All right.
So I guess to go through this, I've verified this against the state statute, and I have everything included that is required by statute. There are a couple things that are missing from previous budgets, possibly. Well, two things, I guess, is what I would say. One would be a specific transfer page saying that we're transferring X amount from one fund to another. That is included in here, but it's not separated out as a page.
Does it have to be?
It doesn't have to be, no. As long as we have appropriated and are showing all of the funds and all of the allocations, we don't need to have a separate page. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. So it's audible.
Yes,
We will pass
yes.
the scrutiny.
By my estimation anyway, yep. And the second thing would be the staff, including the staff in there. This is, I looked off of Chaffey counties to kind of see, they also use CIC and they have a similar format. I guess they use the same report that I pulled here as well.
So they tagged it the same.
Yes, and so, but within that, there is not a specific spot for employees. From what I've noticed.
What does that mean for employees?
Yeah, so in previous budgets, we've had included on a particular department's sheet, revenue or expenses, I guess, the different positions that work in that department, as well as what the wage breakdown was.
Okay.
I have a breakdown.
So CICs that available can accommodate.
It would be a report that I would have to create. It wouldn't be something we could just.
It's not a can.
pull. No.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and so with time constraints, that was one of the things that I didn't add there, and I think it's something. It definitely would be something we'd add next year, especially after discussion
Since
about
it's
job
searchable, it
descriptions.
makes it a lot easier to find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can
So-
I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's always been in there because it's public information.
Right.
So if somebody comes in and wants to know that,
Mhm.
it won't, because I need a copy of this in my office.
Mhm.
So it won't be in there. They would have to come to you and get it as a separate report.
Yeah, and what I can do is I can, because I know there's certain points of the year where we have to publicize it.
You could put that in as an
That's what I said.
item on here that
Later,
says
yeah.
salaries are found
I
in
can
blah.
attach it to the budget,
Yeah,
and it doesn't list their name, right? It just, if they're a position.
That's what I have to go back and redact. As all of that. That's why it was
How
gonna
did
be
we
kind
put it in
of
before? It was redacted then.
whatever the,
Type of-
yeah,
I know it's different.
I don't know if it was the
You would have to
software or-
physically Do it yourself now.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's possible. All it's, the important piece is the salary amounts are in there.
Sure, exactly.
And to find the specifics, then the addenda, an attachment says see appendix A salaries, current salaries or something that you can give her.
Right. We could certainly do that. And then in the meantime, of course, people can come to my office and we can pull that or answer any questions that they have regarding that.
Yeah,
So,
and I know maybe that's a question. Is it in statute? It used to be when you put it in the paper that it did have our name. It just had our last name.
Mhm.
And then Donna quit doing that a couple of years ago.
okay.
And I don't know if she quit doing that. Well, she said it wasn't anybody's business.
Mhm.
Is that in statute or?
I'll have to look on that specifically. I couldn't find the need for it in statute in the budget, but I'm sure there's a separate spot for publicizing salaries. And I don't know what the specifics are of that.
Yeah, I've never seen a government, it's all has positions and if you know who it is.
Yeah, then you could.
I mean, if you know
Yeah.
what it is, you can find it, a name, that's public information.
The other counties, what I've seen is they have a list of how many full-time employees they have. They don't include the salaries of those people. They just include the salaries within. Yeah. Yeah. So we've at least satisfied that. And
Clerk's office would be $3 million.
right.
Yeah.
If you decide for it to be, yes.
Half our budget.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring those two things out because those really are the two, what I would say, major differences in the actual structure of it. Everything else, it starts with the budget narrative. That's not exactly the plug and play it looks like that we've used for our previous budgets. Tried to explain a little bit more layman as far as how some of this works. As I continue to understand this, I'll also make sure to put that in there for the general public to know and to better understand, because I think that's important for the public to understand how the Tabor limit works and how that even though our property tax revenue went up pretty substantially this year, they're protected because of those limits from not having a similar amount. So some of the other things that I mentioned there were talking about spending down our fund balances. And just to actually state that it's not by accident that we are spending over in our funds. It's because we're wanting to spend that fund balance.
That's
down.
right. You know, it's really, we wish there was a better way of describing it. We're not exceeding our budget.
Right.
By any stretch. It's we're exceeding what we budgeted.
Right.
For that particular fund, not the budget for the entire county.
Right. And the way the statute reads is we are allowed to spend up to the amount of revenue that we expect to take in, as well as the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have full reign of those two
We're required
numbers.
to keep a certain amount, which the public ought to know that. I mean, they don't understand that. I mean, we're not allowed to run out of money.
Right.
And he spoke to that right here on page 3. If contingent fund is maintained in the event of unforeseen circumstances.
You might want to put a percent in there. I mean, that's why not? That's by statute. It's X% of the budget.
And I'd have to check with Sam on that.
Maybe you know, but it's
If there are other changes that we need to make, then certainly we can add that to it. But as far
I like
as
just stating that's great.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's the budget narrative.
Can we talk about something there, a
Yeah.
couple of things. Third, let me see here, sorry. Yeah, third paragraph on page 3. I never did find what you were reading, by the way, Kevin. I was glancing at something else, but. So I wonder if in the narrative, we spell out these 6 funds. A lot of, not a lot. People have asked me, who do you give that tax money to? Well, I ramble off the obvious ones, but I don't know where else this would be documented in the county except right here, really, for the average person that wanted to pull this up and look. It's not going to show anywhere else in this budget because we don't budget that, right?
It is, yeah. So
I mean, by the individual entity.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that last sentence, see the property tax revenue summary page for more details. That is page 6. And so that breaks out what the levies are by those 6 funds.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. What does consolidated budget summary really mean? That's exactly what.
Why don't you put page 6 there? Because
Yeah, and I, you'd think the finance guy could count. There's 5 funds that we do mills to. So
they got to
so I need to change that.
Okay.
yeah, that's good.
You've got your living document there. How you can do this all good. And we reduced the mills this year, 2022 over 2021 to stay under the table limit. Is that correct?
To stay under the 5.5% limit that Colorado statute provides. So it's there's the Tabor limit and there's the 5.5%.
Two different things.
The Tabor would be the 20 point, whatever our last year's mill levy was. That's our Tabor limit. We can't go above that number of mills. If it's 5.5%, we have to decrease our mills to match whatever that happens.
Whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I was headed down a different road here when I read that sentence, and I kind of looked to Kelly too. When I first read that property taxes are collected and distributed to 6 different funds, my thought process went to the entities outside of the county that we distribute tax revenues to, school, all the special districts, libraries. That's what I was addressing. I'm sorry, I'm talking out in left field here. That's what I was thinking about, those other funds. I don't think they show up anywhere in the budget because that money doesn't come to us.
Right.
You could make a general statement that says there are the tax money in excess of what's allocated. The county goes to the school, blah, blah, blah. maybe something.
That makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll add to that one. Property taxes are collected and distributed to 5 different county funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that paragraph, I'll say it should be noted that other tax revenue go
Tax
to
districts within the county.
To special districts. Wetmore Fire.
Wetmore Fire is totally donation.
Okay. Wet Mountain
Round Mountain
School
Clinic.
School
clinic and a fire department. Oh, you said the
Library.
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 Boy, I've been a lot of heat on that library.
West Cliff Library.
Yeah, that would be West Custer County Library.
That's good to know.
To be confused.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
a
I
big
just
deal.
thought that might be a clarifying sentence.
See, that library fund's like 200 and some odd thousand bucks, and people are saying, why am I wiring my taxes? It's not our problem. That's the district that's there. They need to address it to them, not this commissioner.
Yeah, collect those taxes and then.
We're just administrator of that for that district.
Pass through.
That would be a good statement.
The one I was referring to, Tom, is the last sentence on page 3.
The contingent fund.
Yeah, it says contingent.
Okay, I was a little confused about that then.
That may not be the one that Bill was referring to as our
spend down.
Not quite.
No, it's not contingent fund, it's a totally separate thing.
Right, that's in addition to the limit.
Yep.
So that gives us the flexibility within our budget to move money back and forth. If it blows the year's budget line, this contingent fund is for an unforeseen event.
I'm not sure I follow.
Well, we have one we cannot blow, which is the one by statute.
Right.
And this one we can, if we wanted to risk it. And that amount of money we put in there is just a guess of the year. I mean, you can't predict godlike fact, acts of God.
Yeah, and
And that's nice for the people to understand that we're being prudent. We can't, if we spend it all, then you're not gonna get the road, you may not get dug out in an event.
yeah, and that hasn't been touched in 3 years. So it's one that I think that is part of the reasoning for the Tabor limits.
People
Now this being a different Tabor limit than the property tax, but the Tabor limits that we have within each fund. I think that's also part of it, but then we have this contingent fund set aside per what it said in the past for, any act of God type scenario.
Which is different than a fund balance, obviously.
That's my mistake there.
Yeah, it's okay. I was dealing with the top when you read it and I was scanning for it, but I couldn't find it. So thank you for pointing that out.
It sounded good when I first read it.
You sounded very.
You guys haven't paid attention.
Like it's
All right.
Didn't sound like it's from Wetmore, did it?
I've been taking notes from Clint, but I guess I didn't take good enough ones.
There wasn't any Latin in it. That was the problem.
How many years did you have?
And then just a random question here. I see that you had included a thank you at the end of that. So thank you. I expect to see your name, but your name's up on the front list. So. Yeah, I think it's well worded and I think anybody can pick this narrative up and read it and get a pretty good picture of what we're doing if they didn't know it already.
Okay, good. So what's the first thing that we hadn't reviewed and agreed to previously that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so that was the first thing. We'll come back to the approval page. The comparatives, so all of the summaries are new. I'd be sugarcoating it if I didn't say it any other way. That the conversion process has, I've now seen the full ugliness of the conversion process. Because in going through all of this, as I mentioned before, I was still continuing to find duplicate accounts where we had posted to both accounts. And so before this draft, we were getting closer and closer, but now finally being in a place where I am confident and comfortable with the revenue numbers that have come from this. There were hidden accounts, there were duplicate accounts, and this is not any sort of behind the scenes trying to, this isn't anybody that was doing something wrong. This is just how it was set up originally. And as the process has gone, it's just gotten messier.
Tangled.
Yeah. And so a lot of that's gotten cleaned up now. I guess this one's the mill levies, which is kind of separate from all of that. This is just totally based off of JD's assessed valuation for property for Custer County, which you see there.
You're on page 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is his final assessment. It changed by, I can't remember, like maybe $90,000. It was pretty spot on to begin with. So
So, and for the record too, because not everybody's gonna walk in here and ask for a copy of the budget. I certainly don't intend on reading the entire budget into the record, but our assessed valuation in 2021 was 112,600,000 rounded. And in 2022, it's projected to be 123,900. Sorry, 123,990,000. So roughly gone up $11 million on assessed valuation. That's huge. That's big. Compared to 2020, it went up roughly $3 million. So significant change there. And I think it's important on this page to note that the general fund is being funded by just a little over 10 mils of that 123, almost $124 million.
Correct.
That's a good point. And to enhance that point is it's not because the county got greedy. It's because inflation, the cost of living and all that thing impacted the valuation of the values of these houses have gone up everywhere.
Yeah.
Significantly.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 years.
And as mentioned in the narrative, just because the valuation went up 10% over the last year does not mean that the taxpayer is paying 10% more in property taxes.
That's right.
One of the benefits for the county will be, so long as our valuation stays at that amount or continues to grow, it will start to catch up, but we just don't get that all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives everybody a little time to grow into that.
That's right. And it really is sort of part of inflation. If we didn't do it, we would be losing money and we would be losing services to the taxpayer, right? Because of that.
And the two funds that went down for the mills were the general fund from 10.7 down to 10.09. And then, of course, the Human Services Fund, which was a decision we made, went from 1 to 1.5. So we had to massage that a little bit. Distribution of the mills.
I can't speak to the insurance fund, but the Road and Bridge Fund and the Emergency Services Fund are both set by voter, by vote of the people.
Yeah.
So those we can't touch, but so when the mill levy does go down, when we do have to go against that 5.5% statute, we can only take it from the things that the voters have not already voted on. So that's why it hits general fund. But it does have the potential to hit the Department of Human Services as well as insurance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've had people ask me, how much tax money does Road and Bridge get? That's one of the big questions. In 2015, the voters here voted a $5 million assessment for Road and Bridge. And in 2017, that was under 500,000. 90-some thousand, it's up to 619,000. So the taxpayers are paying that 5 mils. I mean, they're paying the taxes and 5 for that. And for their vote is into a dedicated fund of Road and Bridge.
And that's a good point. That's actually separate from 5.5%, because our limit truly is 15.091 for the county, but because of that vote for that 5, that gets added to
20. And I said dedicated, the word's restricted, but. So
just a quick, this is just curiosity. That nice table, how come in the, if you follow across in a line from any of those funds, the summary, you got the final, it's notched up a half a step.
It's a great question.
It's all the other
formatting error.
That's on my part. Kind of a weird, not your fault. I mean, that's kind of just weird is all.
I guess my final comment on the comparative summary of that is I'm asking almost for reinforcement, if I understand this correctly. The county's total revenue from property taxes, $2,491,000. No grants, no nothing in there. That's property tax revenues only.
Yes, that doesn't include sales tax or any grants, any other type of tax. Page 7. So this is actually where I was talking about with the funds being hidden and everything. This is the page that I'm now confident in as far as revenue and expenses go. So you can follow across there that it's broken out into the 10 funds that we budget for. As Tom mentioned earlier, we have several other funds, but those are the pass-throughs, and those are handled almost exclusively by Virginia's office. And so these are truly the ones that the Department of Finance handles and the county has some say over. So the only thing of note there, I guess, would be human services, which we knew from the audit had gone into the negative for 2020. That should be rectified by their anticipated revenue and expenses, but we did go ahead and give that $500,000. My suggestion would be that would not continue after this year, because per what's budgeted for next year, they should be sitting pretty well at almost $150,000 if everything plays out the way we budgeted here. So I did just want to point that out. The other thing that I want to point out is the airport fund, which historically runs in the red. The reason it doesn't show it running in the red is because we would be doing a transfer from the general fund. This year we had budgeted for $33,000 to be transferred. And as I talked with Virginia about how that takes place, we don't actually have to use that full budgeted amount. And so I went ahead with $15,000, which covers what their revenue and expenses would be for this year. And then I budgeted for $40,000, I believe, for next year to be, I'm sorry, no, it was
more than that, because you get
33,000, I think. The rest is revenue from them, and we can get to that on
that's their projected.
their particular
So
page.
let's use the airport, for example, on page 7, the number's fairly small, so be a little easier to digest. Beginning fund balance is not considered revenue. Correct?
Correct, because we already have it.
Okay. And so if we look for airport, I'm not picking on them, it's just fairly small numbers. So 80,000 is their expected revenue.
Correct.
83,750 is their expected expenses. That 5180 is what is left after we get into their fund balance to make the books balance, right? Because their expenses are greater than their revenues.
Because they rolled over 3,800.
That would essentially be what's in the bank, quote unquote, starting 2023 for the airport.
That was already.
And that's the same for all these funds.
What's interesting on this page is the revenue in 21, like 8,600,000 roughly. And projected one is 9 million. Plus up of $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And that expected new revenue is because of a new building or what? That increase? Or is it?
That would.
Why did we increase just that much?
Well, that let's see real quick.
Page 7, bottom line, you look at the revenue in 21 is 8,600,000 and the revenue projected in 22 is 9,293 roughly. 9,386, 900.
Yeah, based on sales tax and property tax to be higher for next year as well. Continue on that trend.
So that's a good point, because I always quote, hey, we only got a $7 million budget. We actually have a $9 million budget.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there were several places where that budgeted number I think it just been pulled from year to year.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I gave it a good look at what the previous years were and tried to come up with some sort of trend on what that particular line item
It's
was.
a lot easier to see now. I like this. I like it.
Yeah, and I did try to. I do try to, when making those decisions, budget conservatively on the revenue side and a little more liberally on the expense side. So just to make sure that
You don't
when
go in the red.
Yeah. So I do think, and if we look at the previous
That's good.
budgets, we tend to go over what our
Sure,
budgeted revenue is.
but you've added some cushion, and now we'll see if it was a good add or not. And if it isn't, that's okay, because we can allocate funds throughout the year like we should be doing if it looks like we're running low or hot.
Yeah.
Right.
As I learned at my conference, all these numbers are wrong. It's just a matter of seeing. how
That's right,
wrong
they are. That's
So,
exactly right. It's
Yeah.
like a plan. It's always wrong as soon as you start executing it. It's going to change.
Yep, so.
So on page 7, when the reality of it is, this budget is going to reflect decisions that we made. Our expenses exceed our revenues by $1,265,000.
Correct.
And we're going to make that up by dipping into the fund balance of the county.
Correct.
To buy it down.
Yeah, the only department that is not the case, the two departments are Emergency Services and Department of Human Services. They're both operating expenses under revenue.
Right.
Every other department,
Mostly grants.
decisions were made to spend over what the revenue was.
Which I struggle with a little. It comes back to the philosophy of the county commissioners and what we believe our fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities are. Certainly legal to do it.
Anything else on page
So
7?
then you get into the general, then you go into the funds themselves.
Yeah, so these first pages that we just went over are really kind of the overall pages. The next one start to, little by little, we start to zoom in on everything. And so this next general fund budget summary is just the budget summary of the general fund. So one of the 10 funds that we have, the way that this is by and large the biggest fund that we have, both in complexity and the amount. If every listing under revenues and expenditures is currently a department. And so that's how that's broken down. And you'll see this will continue to change over this next year as we start to implement the system and clean it up further. I will say that now that it is not where I want it to be by any means. This is still a work in progress, but this is what could be done by this point. And so for revenues, you'll see things like non-departmental property tax, license and permits, intergovernmental charges for services and miscellaneous. That's kind of the 6 departments. They're currently departments, quote unquote, for nearly every fund. And what it amounts to is it makes it really difficult to look apples to apples for any of our departments and to be able to see that, okay, the sheriff is bringing in X amount of money and the sheriff is spending X amount of money. We've not really had a good way of looking at that from what I can tell in the past.
True.
And so trying to clean that up, it started. You'll see there that there's county sheriff and county patrol. The sheriff's department has split into 3 departments to where there's a sheriff admin, a county patrol, which would include all the deputies and sergeants, and not all the sergeants. Court security is under admin, and then the jail, county jail. So that's going to help the sheriff's office to better track those particular lines. And now it's also its own department for revenue. So when we pull a budget versus actual report in CIC, we can actually see real time how much money they're bringing in. They can see how much money they're bringing in. And there's just a lot more transparency. And then we can play that against the actual expenses as well.
I see the county patrol doesn't have anything. Does it just have a plan to put it in it or no?
So it is
Or is
budgeted for this year, 54,000 on page 8.
I'm looking at 9. It's got 0 in 2021, 22. Okay. You're right.
Why isn't the jail listed right there then?
The jail's not listed there because currently there's only one revenue stream for the jail, which is inmate housing. It exists in, I think, in intergovernmental. The way that I've done this, it's such a Band-Aid right now, but the way that I've done this is I've budgeted where the historical data is. And then at some point next year, my hope is to be able to take those historical accounts and move them into the department with all the history with it. Right now, it would just be, I think it's going to take some behind the scenes for CIC to do that. Right now, the only thing that I can do is take a fund balance and transfer it, which doesn't give us any data as to what that money was coming in or what any of the history was. So that was my decision there, and why it's not totally broken out for this year. So that's one case. Planning and zoning would be another big case. Landfill would be the other big case. Those are included under license and permits and charges for services. So at some point next year, we will have those transferred to where it truly shows revenue, planning and zoning, $350,000. And then we can see month by month that X amounts coming in. Departments don't have to keep track of it separately. They're welcome to do that, of course, to check the system, but they don't have to. They can at least do the checks and balances of Virginia's receipted this money. I see it in there now. It's under the right fund. And any expenses going out, they can make sure that the finance department's doing it correctly.
And we've talked about it, same with landfill. Eventually, we're going to show a recycling landfill.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we'll split those two out and have specific expenses and revenues for both of those. It really, and I want to iterate this, I guess, for any department heads that are listening and for you all as well. But for me, there's not a lot of constraints from my end on it. If it makes sense for Kelly to have 6 different splits in her department to better track things, then she's certainly welcome to do that if it's helpful. And that's the case with any department, or if it's helpful. Department of Human Services, I think, is a good example. Technically, we have something like 20 different departments there, but each of them only have one account under them, which to me seems redundant to have a department with only one thing under it when you can say it's Department of Human Services and you have 12 different line items for specific things.
Right, they help them manage it, but I don't know why anybody wouldn't do that.
So that's,
And
that's
they're free
just
to move it back and forth. It's not like you restrict it in there. It's up to them.
right. And so that's just the nature of the evolution of this budget, I think, over the years.
You know, I was thinking this morning early, be nice to look at departments and their vehicle expenses as part of that whole budget process. Maybe it doesn't make the final budget, but it'd be nice to have those broken out.
Yeah. I'm looking into to see if there's a fourth moniker, I guess, for lack of a better term, to be able to pull out some things like that, where we could just pull a number and it would be all the vehicles, or we could pull a number and it's everything that's under X grant. I think that would be something that would be helpful. It's just
Over time.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you know, and then vehicles, for example, then we should be tracking that and making some informed decisions down the road. Is are we better off buying vehicles or paying mileage or vice versa? But we can't make those decisions if we don't have those numbers.
And that's what I'm really excited for in this position is once all the basics are cleaned up, then we really do get a chance to start planning out what that looks like. To Kevin's point yesterday, you know, what is sustainable as far as positions go, and to be able to actually put a number to, you know, at the end of the day, we need X amount coming in for all of these positions. And this is how much it costs to run the county at its base, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And if that base gets over, you know, whatever we decide, if that's property taxes or some other type of value, then we know that, okay, we got to pull back on that kind of a thing.
And have some data to back up those decisions where we can make an intelligent decision for sure. And I know that Commissioner Day was fairly critical of you today about the miscellaneous. I'd like to point out, we went from 350,000 down to 71,000.
It's a big party fund.
The hope would be next year that would be zero.
Exactly. Well, we made great strides in cleaning that up, so.
Any questions on 8 or 9? I guess the flow of that, just so everyone's aware, it starts with revenue, then it shows all the expenditures. That then goes into a revenue minus expenses, which I'm not aware of being in any other budget. So I think it's helpful for us to have those numbers to quickly look and see this is how much we're over. And then it plays against the beginning and end fund balances as well.
Would it make sense on page 9 to just put in parentheses continued after the word summary? Because that is a continuation of page 8, correct?
Yes.
Because there's no totals on the second half of page 8.
Yep.
If I read it correctly.
Yep.
We can get up from the business there, but
No, that's fine. All right, so that does it for a department summary, the general fund summary. Then it goes into revenues, which is actually the specifics of every department. That shows the actuals for 18, 19, budget for 20, actual for 20, budget for 21, actual for 21, and then what currently we have budgeted, which the way that shows is budget step 5, which is the draft. So upon approval, that will change to budget step 6, I believe, which is approved or final. And so, but this actually breaks down the particular accounts within every department within the fund.
so it'll be current budget 2022.
Correct.
Yeah, final. Yeah, got it.
I think I figured it out when I was going through this. At the end of a lot of these, we are seeing, I think that was that the insurance fund? Yeah, and that's building insurance.
What page are you on?
I'm scrolling now to find one of them. As soon as I brought it up, now I'm not finding it, but
And I need to make it.
at the end of some of these departments. Find it again.
Insurance and Human Services.
I withdraw my question because now I'm not finding it. Maybe it was in one of the earlier drafts or something.
When I see it is,
So I do have a question if you're done, Mr. Day.
Go ahead.
If I don't get it asked, I'll do kind of like you. I'll get lost and won't be able to find it again. So in our 2022 budget, we do not show any ARPA revenue. correct? I'm on the third line under non-departmental.
Correct. And part of that was, if I had that figure, I didn't remember it.
Okay,
Uh,
I can give that figure to you because it's exactly the same as 2021.
Oh, it's the
Yeah.
exact same, 492.
We'll split it right in half.
Put it right in half.
And so I believe we should show that revenue, or we're gonna be in trouble. Now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's somewhere else. I just caught my eye when I looked at that.
No, it's not.
And if it's not, then
We did talk about it.
obviously,
We're
it's
just-
gonna change things on the revenue
You
side,
just didn't
correct?
write it down.
Yeah.
Broken in half.
Because we will get that revenue of $492,200 in late April or early May. All the paperwork said May,
Mhm. Okay.
so that's going to cause a lot more work in
That's
It'd be easy to put
the
it
beauty
on
of CIC, but
well,
you don't have a
yeah,
pencil.
all the summaries were ones I had to do separate.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, it doesn't all populate that way.
Yeah, we took that 984, 400. Well, we didn't. Treasury split it exactly 50-50.
Okay. So that would beg the question on the expense side. All I budgeted for on the expense side was the, no, I'm gonna lie, never mind. I did not,
That was in 2021.
I didn't put anything on the
See,
expense.
and that's interesting because we have no idea what we're gonna expend out of that money in
But we know
2022.
we're gonna try to get rid of all.
In 1 year.
We can't. It does.
I think we have 6 years,
4 years to.
4 years to.
And
4 years to
So 4
allocate.
years to allocate. 6
But it could
years.
be 100,000 or whatever, it could be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess on the expense side, we just have to take a stab at it.
But if you did just say it was all of it, if it isn't used, it rolls into the
Right.
next year. anyway.
Either way, I think the danger would be not putting anything
Yeah,
in
you
there.
you need to know that that's accounting for, because it is real money that's gonna hit it, and we're gonna say, well, where'd that come from?
Right. And I didn't know if, because we could certainly handle it as budget resolution. We can put it in there since we know it. And
And
then
you deal with it as a budget resolution.
the question would be if we put in 492,200 on both sides, we even out.
Right.
Everything's the same.
Right.
We just increase expenses and revenues by that amount.
It must be you. Peter.
The-
Sound feels like mine. I keep looking, but it's not.
The other thing within that as well would be there's $398,000 that's left
Right.
from this year that wasn't spent. If we included all of that of course puts us $398,000 further down.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I don't anticipate we're gonna spend any more of that before the end of the year, but who knows? It'd be a horse race with holidays and.
Yeah, and there, all I was gonna mention at the end of the meeting, Andrew's got things ready to present to us on that. They'll email, but they're not gonna be putting any forms out to anybody.
Okay.
Are they gonna send us an email?
Yeah.
And then wrap it around?
I'll read that deal when we get done.
So I think we show revenue for 2022, and then I agree with Commissioner Canada. We just show we expended all. If we don't, we budget resolution, or we don't have
I
to show
think
we
you do
expended any of
it.
it.
You put it all in now, so we don't have to have budget resolution to put it in later.
Do you want the entire
Sure.
amount that we can use?
Yeah. That's pretty good. And we can roll it.
So the 398 plus the 492? Okay.
I don't think we're gonna spend any more of that this year, do you guys? Yeah, I'd be amazed if we did. And we can make that decision. We're not going to.
Right, because
We can
right
decide
now,
that.
yeah, because it ain't gonna make any difference.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, if somebody just had a deathly need for it, I guess we could, but
If we have to, we'll just make a resolution and do it.
so we're 700 and some, 800,000, whatever that would be
800.
per.
Yeah.
But is that revenue? Because that was
No.
really a fund balance,
No,
right?
we've recognized the revenue already.
Yeah,
So,
So you're saying
Just
the
expenditure.
maximum we could expend would be that 800.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
so which really doesn't play into the fund balance. It will affect the fund balance, but it's restricted anyway.
Mhm.
It's
It's all for that.
Yeah, so we're not gonna shovel it off into landfill.
right.
Didn't mean that pun,
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay,
That makes sense.
I'll add those two.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else in general fund?
Good question. I'm not sure where I saw it last night. I did see a line item for the community building down there. Where is that located? Is that in the?
Probably
general fund?
the maintenance, I would guess. Unless it was,
And I apologize because I didn't catch up from when I was gone. What we ended up.
yeah, I mean, Conservation Trust Fund dollars certainly were allocated to that. I don't think we budgeted any other. Did we, Tina, do you know? Wetmore Community Building, Conservation Trust Fund dollars, right?
Yeah, we've got them listed.
Do you know what that was?
Oh, 10?
Let me look it up. I don't want to say.
I know they had asked for 10, I think.
We gave it, no?
I apologize because I,
10,000 for the
Yeah.
community center, 7,000 for the library. 10,000 for the
17,000.
community, 7 for the library.
I don't know if that's what you were talking about for sure.
So that's
yes, it is, because the one I
$1,000
saw
per person.
wasn't showing the dollars, and then when I went, of course, when I went back to look for it, I couldn't find it.
Sound like my girlfriend. Thinks only 2 people live up here.
So on page 15, then you'll stick in that 800 and some thousand on the expense or no? Under ARPA?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where that'll flesh out.
All right, the next page would be 31, which is road and bridge. There's summary.
Can I ask you a question before we delve off into that? We talked about it. I just don't remember what our final decision was about. How are we handling? Did we create a line item for a matching grant fund?
No.
Okay.
Not outside of,
Individual department? No.
right, and what we had done in this department. Increased community outreach, and that seems to be, that is page 16,
16.
top of
Okay.
16.
Bill, got a question in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking down.
I wanted to let you know that I did confirm that yes, it's 10,000 for the community center, 7 for the library in Wetmore. And then to answer your question, yes, we split that money in half. It was 984,000. So there's, for next year, it'll be $492,200.
Okay.
So we just split it equally. in half.
Yeah. So page 16, I'm sorry.
Yep, top of 16. Community outreach is the only thing that we increased, but that,
Well, we decreased it from this year. I'm sorry. No, increased from this year, decreased it from 2020.
yeah,
Yeah, so do you guys remember us talking about that? Adrian's situation, that wasn't really a pure case because we just overlooked that. But if we,
Get
if
unforeseen.
If a county entity, doesn't matter who it is, puts in a grant and it's a 75-25 match, where are we going to consistently come up with those county match dollars? My thought was and probably maybe handle it through the commissioner's account, I don't know. To say we've got a matching fund and there's $50,000 in it. then we know what we can afford to match these
Trouble
grants.
is, I hear you, and I think it's a good idea, partly. Problem is, you don't know, and then you're boxing some money into something that we might not use. I like the idea of being able to justify each one that comes in. And that way we got more visibility in whether it's important or not.
But where does the money come from?
That big general fund.
Yeah, I think that would be my
And that would
suggestion
be,
too, is that we would actually do it on a case by, I don't see it being any different to set it aside in a line item or to take it. Essentially, it's going to come out of the fund balance every time. So, and there's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no room right now for us to.
Then we can really wring our hands over the fund balance going in or out. We know we do it anyway. And nobody can, we won't sign anything that if we're putting our money into it, we gotta know what it is.
Right.
On a case by case basis anyway.
We've accounted for the ones that we know we're getting, or that we know we're
Right, we're
possibly getting.
predicting, right?
Yeah, I think we've got that process kind of cleaned up. I hope nobody's submitting grants without,
See, that's
especially matching grants.
right, that's EMPG grants and all that are your revenue in, revenue out already. The ones we're aware of.
But to Adrian's point, if he's got a 75-25 match and it's 100,000,
We're gonna have to wring our hands on
And for
I
that,
think I'm sorry.
no, I'm going.
Per our conversations on some of that, trying to get that straightened out. Anything that was a matching grant, they have to come to us before they submit, correct?
that's
Right.
why I
We
believe we've
cannot
got
submit
that
it without, I
process
think we've
cleaned
got
up.
it handled. Case by case is
So
the
I would,
only way it's gonna go.
I agree, it was kind of convoluted this year. But if they're happening to come to us beforehand, I think we can
And
address this.
it honestly was convoluted because we had grant everywhere, stored here, stored there. Tina can't find them still some places. So I think it's getting cleaned up.
I understand your
Yeah,
angst. I guess.
I know we can do it and I understand that. And I still have angst over quote unquote, living off the fat of the fund balance.
But we can handle that, I think, if you just, internally, we can know that the fund balance is gonna be X. That it doesn't matter. We could say, we'll consider it down to a certain amount. Maybe it's $100,000 for grants. I don't even but that's sort of like what Donna did. She had an invisible line for things. And I'm not saying you should do that. Maybe it's miscellaneous. But maybe that's the way to handle it. It is in the fund balance.
Well, and I think, one couple points. If it's Adrian, if we have it in the commissioner's line, it doesn't do us any good anyway, because it's a different fund.
Right.
And so we'd want to take it out of their fund in some way. And I guess I shouldn't say that it would just come from the fund balance. It's truly whatever's decided. If we decided there was a grant that came in and that warranted the sheriff not hiring another person, then we can take that amount out of their budget.
Well, it's
and
even
put it
simpler
towards
than
that.
that, I think. We didn't do it this year, but each fund that comes to sheriff, OEM, whatever, when they present a budget, and if a lot of their business is based on a grant, they ought to say, I'm going to allocate for a certain amount of a match. And that's when we would agree. That's sort of where you hide that, not instead of hiding, have instead of a separate balance, you got to dedicate already per fund.
Yeah.
Because they operate out of the health department does. They could say, I'm going to expect $2 million or whatever they think. Fund match is 200,000, and we could agree then. We'll give you X, and we'll see what it really is if you do get the grant. But at least you got parts of it already there.
Yeah.
Or maybe all of it.
Yeah, but I agree that we don't want to just continue to, I mean, because there's a fund balance here, doesn't mean it's free money to go play with. We need
That's
to
right.
maintain
Visibility.
we don't need to spend that down.
Right, we need to
To
maintain the
bare bones.
We can
integrity of
decide
that.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Right, and that's exactly where we're at right now, this year. 2022. We're living beyond our means and using that general fund to bail us out. I don't think it's fiscally responsible, but we weren't willing to make any hard decisions on anybody. Everybody got what they requested under budget plus, right? Because we threw some salary increases in there.
But what we did though, Tom, is we did, and the way he did it, he already decremented it to keep us out of, that was why I wasn't willing to increase it by 500K or whatever. You're right, we have to be aware of that. We're gonna know next year better because you're gonna come either closer or end up with more money at the end of this next year.
Yeah,
See
that,
how the fund balance.
I would say that's the place where I'm still not confident on is the fund balance
Gonna grow
and how
or
that
not.
works.
Right.
Because, like you said, there's a percentage. I don't know what that is. And that's a Sam question as far as like what, at the end of the day, what do we need to be prepared for? And it might come down to next year, we need to save $1 million.
Right.
And
Right now, how much do
that
we have?
decision
You said it was a mere 2 million or whatever it was
that we have
left
spent.
in fund balance.
Oh,
Beginning fund balance was 3 something.
yeah. So the
We
ending
took it
after,
to $1 million, whatever.
yeah, the ending after next year would be 2.8 million.
Yeah, so that's 3 million we're betting on. And if we're that wrong, boy, that's a big mistake. Right? We had no clue what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All right, where were we?
But I guess my recommendation is that we would handle any grants that come to us next year on a case-by-case basis. And with the full intention that we will find everywhere that we can, that's not the fund balance first. I think that'll be as clean, if not cleaner than trying to set aside some money in each fund or something along those lines.
Okay, so page 31, we were at.
Yeah. I believe.
Page 31 is road and bridge. Nothing different here than what we discussed. Talking about the raises that were decided upon to take place in 2022. I didn't actually change the budgeted numbers. That should be well within what is there anyway. So I just left it as we had decided to begin with.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's exactly what we talked about.
Okay.
37. Is that right?
Yep, 37's
Continue.
That's correct. I'm sorry. Contingent fund, nothing in, nothing out. That's just there.
And for Kevin's sake, I know that number has not changed since 2007. We've never put any additional money into that contingency fund.
Thanks. Not because something hasn't happened, but because we never did actually spend out of it.
We've never spent out of it. We've
Never had the need to do
Never.
or whatever balances we found that weren't spent.
So
We've never put any in it either. So I'm assuming as long as nobody ever spends out of it, nobody's going to worry about adding anything to it. That's
Not a lot,
kind of
no,
the track
it's-
record.
Yeah.
Cover some overtime, some unexpected overtime, that's about it.
I did wonder at one point if we shouldn't, if there are not things that we should be accounting for, that may be a good place for it, but the way it's defined currently,
I guess
we
not.
wouldn't, it's
That's
the
pretty
way it is, yeah.
Sure.
like some of the things, I think probably sheriff or road and bridge would be the first ones that would be out of that possibly
Yeah,
for fire, flood, mitigation, but I think they've normally absorbed that and then tried to go through reimbursement.
External reimbursements.
we talked in the past, if a tree fell in and knocked a bunch of windows out of the courthouse, or fell on the roof and damaged the roof, or if we had wind damage on a building, or just those unexpected
Kelly
expenses.
decides to remodel.
Really, we've talked more
Shut
kind
the
of
face
outside of Road and Bridge for the reason you just spoke of.
Okay,
Uh,
that's good to know, because I wasn't aware of exactly where the confines of that were.
I don't think it's really
So whatever we want to
got a
make
lot
it.
of parameters around it, but Road and Bridge has their fund balance, and we've always discussed that being really their contingency fund.
Mm.
I don't know that maybe they should have a contingency fund. I have no idea about that overtime,
That's how they
snow
manage it.
removal or whatever,
Yeah.
but
Next year, that's where I'd like to be is truly some numbers set for the fund balances that say 25% of this is, or this is the base, there's 700,000 has to be here.
yeah,
don't
you have a
spend into
long-term
that.
plan
Yeah.
and you manage to that plan. It makes sense to me.
Oh, we got your insurance fund here next.
Oh, did you find my insurance fund?
Is that the one you're looking for? In insurance funds,
It's
page
for everybody's,
38.
it's what it's in everybody's account. Revenue expended. Treasurer's
that
commission.
our-
That's funny.
What insurance is?
Mhm. From what I understand, it happens at the beginning of the year. There's a big chunk of money that comes out to pay, I assume CTSI for the building,
Services.
for the buildings, for the vehicles, for anything that's capital related. I don't believe this, it's called self-insurance. I'm not exactly sure. I agree with that. Because to me, self-insurance would be, we have enough money to cover, things that happen. We don't pay an insurance company. But this, I believe, truly is just a holding tank for that large money spent for insurance.
So it's not for the portion that the county pays of like the employees' health insurance, or
Benefits.
does it include that?
Not
This is
from my
just like
understanding, it's
vehicle
not. Exactly.
insurance,
That is
capital
property
assets.
insurance, all that.
Right.
So the only question I have on this is how come the treasurer's commission, whatever it is included in the treasurer's commission? Why is that insurance?
That is
That's
great
what I kept
question.
seeing as treasurer's
Yeah, she
commission.
gets a
Yeah.
fee
She gets a
to
fee for
administer-
managing
to
it.
administer.
Okay, and that was what was on each one of these
Yeah.
funds that I kept seeing was the
Yeah.
treasurer's commission, and
Yeah.
And that ends up under,
Yeah, which surprised.
One of her
Well,
lines.
several places. Yeah, it's not just in insurance. It's
yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
should
Page
be,
31, that 8,500. Yeah. It shows up in some other areas too.
yeah.
oh, it does.
multiple places. That's what I kept
This is
seeing
this
last
is a
night.
summary of it, isn't it, where it shows up in other places? Because that's what.
This
it's
is
called.
just-
Insurance.
Yeah, just a summary of the insurance.
So when it's spent in other places,
Right.
that's why it shows.
But not this number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just what's spent in insurance.
I don't think any of the CWPP money comes out of this kind of stuff. I think this is asset coverage.
That's the way I
Workers'
understood
comp
it.
pool, all that stuff's handled through.
It's not really happened since I've been here.
CTSI.
Page 39 is Conservation Trust Fund.
There's the Wetmore Library, my golly.
That's where I actually spread it out for everything. I included an other line there, which is just other organizations that's received it in the past, just so we could have a consistent picture of that.
Mhm.
If that wasn't there, it wouldn't show truly what we budgeted and spent on those lines. So just
Yeah.
to save space, that's what that's about.
Makes sense. Looks good.
And then capital improvement is page 40.
I'm trying to digest as we go. We budgeted 40,000 for the Conservation Trust Fund, right? And we extended 43,800, and you showed 3,800 in the whole,
Yep.
which takes our fund balance down.
Correct.
We could have budgeted 50 if we wanted to,
Yes.
because we knew we had that. And that's a weird fund too, because we're gonna probably be 3 months in arrears on our final 2021 payment on the Conservation Trust Fund. I don't know when we get that last payment for sure, but we've gone back and said, okay, we think it's gonna be this much based on the last 3 years. We picked 40 this year, so.
So that final payment for 2021.
We get it in 2022, but it gets charged to 2021 revenue.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
want.
Sam, we had a conversation with him a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, with accrual, we get it when it's earned, not when it actually hits the bank.
And our closest guesstimation as to what that will be is 40,000.
Yeah, we kind of cheated a little bit. Tina and I knew what roughly the requests were going to be, eligible requests, and that's how we could have come up with that. Nothing sacred about that 40 grand.
Okay, move on. We're getting tight.
Page 40, capital improvement. That is not listed out beyond the department, but the information does exist within each of those, what that's going to,
And that's not changed over
what we discussed. Yeah, yep, exactly.
Okay, so like Fair Board has their capital improvement fund dollars, that's going to show up under Fair Board, not under the budget summary.
Correct, yes, because Fair Board is not under capital improvement. It's
got its own capital.
General fund account, and they just happen to have capital improvement under it.
Yeah.
This is county.
In fact, they're the only one that's in our auxiliary service at this, our auxiliary department at this point. This is another one it will be very helpful once it's split out to revenue as well. So we know what's going in, what's going on.
So how did we get from building and grounds, 227,000 in 21 down to 58,000 in 22? I don't remember that. That's a huge,
Just gonna ask that question.
huge difference. I don't know. Unless we broke out some other building and ground stuff, but
I think we did, because we said that it had been paid for.
that's the only other place that money could have gone would be maintenance and repairs.
That's the whole point.
I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that we have this year in building and grounds is the Haga Land Trust. Haga.
How much is it?
58,639.
639.
August.
I believe so. That's an
Oh,
additional page.
That 58,639 is just what you talked about. Okay, that's under building and grounds. That's kind of weird to me.
So just to make it sure it balances. On the leases and balances page, which I really like, it's the last page, it says Haggis is 57,639.
For next year. And I just came across that this morning, that schedule.
That's a good schedule. I like it.
And so that was, so that's in addition to what I had sent you earlier.
Right.
In this last iteration.
But all I'm pointing out is if that's Haggis, the 58,639, it's wrong.
Right. Yeah, it should be whatever's reflected there, the 57.
That's right.
We can certainly change that or leave $1,000 for the fan in the planning and zoning. Bathroom.
Yeah, 57,639.24.
Okay.
Would you like that changed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 39.
Page 40.
It's the summary. 40.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little weird that falls under building and grounds and we don't have a different title for it, since that's the only money there. If it was 200,000 and 58 of it was, hey, it gets lost into that conglomeration, but should that expenditure be Haga trust.
But the 200,000.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it's justified to be under building and grounds
Because it is.
since it's a capital purchase and it is technically grounds that we will have.
Okay.
So either way,
Okay. Yeah.
we do have
I
it
wouldn't-
separated
I
out
would have
now.
never dreamt that that's what that 58,000 was for by looking at this page.
Yeah.
Because building and grounds to me is totally different definition from living day to day dealing with.
But when you're looking at it from a capital improvement point of view, it does make sense. So,
And
It makes sense
it would
if you
be
know what that
different.
is. Yeah.
And I think something that can be done next year, again, further separating out these, that's truly just the department, building and
What you
grounds
could-
department. It could be its own line within that.
Well, wait, how come it couldn't be building and grounds? Then you put your button on there and it categorizes what that total represents.
Yeah,
In this
it-
case, it'd only be Haggett trucks.
Well, for capital improvement, for example, we just have the summary page. If you look at road and bridge, we have a summary page and then we have it broken down.
No, I know.
That's what we would do,
Yeah.
and it would be under
All
building
I'm
and
asking,
grounds.
I can understand.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make, though, technology's there. If I'm cruising through this and I'm a Joe Blow or I'm a commissioner,
Mhm.
and I see that, instead of going flipping through and finding out what pages it did by going through all of them, if you put it on there, you could go back and it could tally all the lines out of all the departments
Mhm.
that have building and grounds and capital improvements that make up that total of 58,000. In this case, it's only one.
Yep. Yeah.
That would be a burning question, or a CIC question. Can you do that?
Yeah, and
If the landfill.
I think we can definitely link it somehow.
Without going back to the landfill page physically,
Mhm.
I could push on the landfill button and I could see that 354,000 build a new blade or new bucket or new.
Well, that might depend on what is supported in this program.
That's what I'm saying. We can't
Yeah,
do that.
what you're looking at, the only thing that CIC came up with are the headers that you are familiar with, the budget history.
So
Mhm.
Everything
one of our
else is things that,
You or
I've-
Vernon would have to build that in.
yeah.
That's all I'm pointing out.
Yeah, there's the Government Finance Officers Association for the nation. It has some guidelines for these things. And one of the things that they talked about was having links within the budget that you can click on and it automatically takes you to someplace.
Mhm.
So that is, now that I've got this under my feet, that next year we'd definitely be going off of some of their suggestions.
Right.
And
Great idea.
So on capital improvement on landfill, 354,000, we've been feeding money into that landfill account to deal with this expansion. That shows up on the revenue side of the landfill.
Well, let's see.
We haven't
I've never
gotten there
seen
yet, have we?
When we would discuss.
Well, we've gone past landfill.
Okay.
This would,
Revenue.
the 175 is for airfield pavement that's the other grants listed in capital improvement. Technically, that is where that income should be coming. Those grants should be coming into capital improvements. I don't see that being the case right now. All that I see is sales tax and commission is the 220, and then 175 is other grants within capital improvement. So those are the only two sources of income we have for capital improvement. So
So
that,
where did the number for building and ground or landfill come from?
well, that's what we had planned to expend. I don't know if we planned revenue for those, for landfill specifically.
Add to that, we were looking grant for the recycle or the new cardboard machine.
Right. See if it's in general fund someplace, but
On the table of contents. I do not see landfill.
It doesn't, it wouldn't be. It's in general fund.
So is the sheriff.
Landfill expansion, there's nothing in our budget line for this year. 20,000 was budgeted for 2021.
We did find out that Virginia and I looking at this, there are a couple of departments that seemingly don't exist. Landfill expansion being one of those that she shows on her records. I don't, because I guess at some point this was decided that she would keep that track of that separately. And so that is something that we're looking into. We've got a call with Liz at CIC on Friday, but that's one of them. And I'm blanking on what the other ones are right now, but there's 2 or 3 accounts. Economic development, I think, is maybe one of those that was kept separately that we seemingly don't have yet.
And we defunded that
Okay.
in 2019.
But there
we have been
is,
funding this landfill expansion for 2.5 years.
right.
That's
Yeah.
that's the transfers that we make every January from the
General
dollar
fund.
extra.
Right.
Yeah,
And we're showing absolutely zero. I'm on page 12, second line down.
Right, for this year, or for past years.
Right.
Yeah. This year we had it in the budget. It's not happened yet because Brian will do that this month. But as far as previous years, you're right. And that's the problem is for some reason we have a separate fund for this and
You don't know where it
doesn't
is
exist.
and how much it is, so we don't know how much we got in the bank for that expansion.
Yeah, and I don't know how we're going to, well, yeah, that too, but how we're going to reconcile it
What
with
it'll
ours.
be is when what's ever hanging out is what it is.
Well, the
Yeah.
beauty of it is
Can't be.
Brian's got a record of all that, and so do we.
and I've got a record.
Yeah, he gives
Because I
that.
do a transfer, so
Right.
I've got those transfer
Right.
sheets that has that
Right.
dollar amount.
So when you
From
get
the
that
general
dollar,
fund?
yeah,
General fund to landfill.
Yeah, I guess
expansion.
it goes in the, yeah,
So-
it's gotta go in the
yeah,
general.
it does.
Because that was my question, and I didn't know if it wasn't there where it's at. Yeah.
Right.
So you
that's-
take that number and you've got that blank category, but you know what it is.
Right,
You just decrement it and see what's left, and then we're gonna have to find the rest of it.
yeah.
So that's not this amount that's in the capital improvement, the
15.
I think,
235,
is that
990.
under sales tax?
No, it's under the building and grounds capital improvement,
pages.
40.
Page 40, sorry. Which one was it now, Kelly? I'm sorry.
Under land, it just says landfill, the 354. It's not within there.
Just the expense. It doesn't, that's not the revenue side at all.
Okay, I can get you what we've put in there.
Okay.
It seems like there's been other stuff put in there though.
Yeah, we put some, that land sale stuff
We're
went
gonna take a
into,
10-cent
Hey,
fee or
Just,
something.
yeah,
into the Justice Center.
maybe that is.
I was trying to find my landfill report.
Thought we took part of the fees is what they're dumping into the landfill as part of the expansion, like 10 cents on the dollar or something, didn't we?
That was defunded before we came on board.
Well, there's two, the recycling fees and the dollar extra,
Hmm.
per
Per
cubic foot,
bag,
whatever
whatever
it
it
was,
is.
yeah. goes into the landfill.
That's right.
expansion fund.
Yeah, what they call that? Do you remember Braden, Joni Liebman had a name for that? I forget what it was. Wasn't bag fee for recycling, but it's not happening now. It was, but it's not. Now, this thing you're talking about, I think is.
Yeah.
Recycling,
Wasn't recycling.
High Country Recycling is not getting any tax dollars from us.
It was
That went
something
away.
else that happens at the landfill that, when I look at that, I'll put
Yeah.
it to tell.
I pull up your staff report for landfill. What was yesterday, wasn't it? Sorry. I just was gonna give you an idea, Braden, of landfill totals. So his commercial cubic yards, make sure I'm in the right deal, 2021.
That's the dollar.
That's 10,270 right now.
200.
10,270. And that converts to dollars because we're putting $1 per cubic yard, commercial only, into the expansion fund.
I remember that conversation.
Right,
sometime.
and so it went by quarter, 2,400, 5,200, 8,000. And then this 10,000 is probably year to date. He doesn't say that, but it looks like it is. So if we figured, if we budgeted $10,000 or $11,000, we should be fine there.
Okay.
Just on that commercial cubic, but there may be another.
And it's gonna be more. So that's safe.
Okay.
And originally, when we started this whole push on the landfill expansion, Bill, didn't we say we were gonna budget county dollars into that? Because we knew we were gonna have this kind of money. Because that 273 on page 40 was just, that was expensive, right?
That's why you will, whatever you don't see, because Donna had a category in her, however she did.
Mhm.
And so whatever she finds.
Yeah, we'll get that cleaned up.
It's allocated to it, and then if you find something different, you can always pull it back later.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
So I dumped my whole budget. I will find it again.
Where are we, Brady?
Were there anything else, capital improvements? Not lodging and tourism.
41.
There, yeah, page 41. Talked about that. They said that they wanted to spend 10,000 over in that. Just as we said.
Yep.
The only thing to notice there, I've got to double check on this. I think Deb might be coming by later to chat with me. We show there being $86,000 in lodging tax for this year, which is quite a bit over what.
Right, you're not showing that here.
Not for next year. We're not budgeting it for next year, but it is showing it in there as the under revenue on page 41.
So they're showing the 84,803 is what it's going to be, which means you'll have a lot to, that's why she wants to spend it down.
Right, but that was unknown at that when we were doing that. So I just wanted to point out that there seems to be a lot of lodging happening. In
Yeah, they got a monster deposit, right, Kel? That came to you, or does that go to? Does it?
For lodging,
I'll come up with it. Yes, the lodging tax, does that come to you, or does it go straight to Virginia?
it goes straight to Virginia.
Okay.
I just get the report.
Okay, yeah, they got.
Last month it was 30,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they got like.
That's why it's
3 times more than
30,000 over
expected.
the 50 that we didn't get.
Yeah. So
So can you tell us who's not paying their taxes?
No.
Just thought I.
My answer's still the same.
And so same thing, they're gonna spend down their beginning fund balance to make up the $10,000 deficit.
Yep.
Which probably isn't gonna happen in reality because they got that 30 grand there and they weren't expecting it.
More than likely gonna have a 30,000 up.
They'll be granting more grants to the airport.
Yeah.
Or wherever.
Yeah. Then emergency services is next, page 45.
Do we care about emergency services? I don't really give a rat's behind.
Yeah,
I
this
knew
is,
that'd get him fired up and come over here.
They're waiting for it out there.
He's gonna bust a move in that door.
Keep rolling.
so
What pavement on 40?
45.
Yeah, twice.
this is what we had discussed. They are not spending into their fund balance.
Right.
So 3,000 to be good.
21. Yeah, and so roughly didn't budget for his fund balance, but it looks like his fund balance may increase by about 3,000.
Yep, exactly.
There, 2 or 3 years ago, that wasn't the case, my friend. Emergency services ran us in the bread every year significantly. So something's going on right over there.
Airport's page 50. As I mentioned before, this is where we would be doing a transfer in order to make up for that. And so we may need to, depending on how this year ends up shaking out and next, we may have to do a budget resolution at the end to increase that amount, depending on what's actually restricted per the auditor. But for now, I think that's gonna do us okay.
Good.
And lastly would be Human Services Fund. This is another one that just very bluntly needs a lot of work. Just the accounts are all over the place, and that very well is probably due to just the state programs and the number of things that they've got going on. But there's a lot of cleaning up that can be done here, and I think will keep us from ever getting into the red again in this department, because there's just a lot going on. So that'll be subject for next year as well. And page 62 is that lease balance sheet that I added this morning.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool document.
I like that.
agree. Now, the only question I would have here is, this is general fund leases and not road and bridge. Why is not road and bridge on here?
Well, and it is just general fund.
Okay.
I was trying to remember I could not find something on road and bridge. Didn't we pay off everything?
We did. But I asked that in the event that we get these 2 graders
Sure.
on the lease instead of purchasing. We did pay the 3 water trucks off. Yes,
That's
that's
right.
exactly right. And
I think I have those on my, I haven't
We-
opened it.
Sheriff's
yeah,
vehicle.
I gave them to Kelly, that's
It
right.
says-
Uh,
I couldn't remember that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Question, there might be one more that needs to be in here.
So we have the titles for those 3 water trucks.
Okay.
And I gave those to Kelly. And I couldn't remember which one.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But my point, I guess, is this only general fund stuff, or is this county stuff that would show up on this lease?
I don't think it needs to be. I think
Should
we
be all
can,
really leases.
we can grow this document, and it can
Okay.
include saying where it takes
Okay.
place.
It's really an addendum to the budget.
Right.
It's for information, right?
Yeah.
But in the county fund, the sheriff's vehicle would show up if he leased it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, everything for sure is in the budget. This is, statute says that you may put a lease balance in, that it is for good use to the public.
Right.
That doesn't require it necessarily, but
makes sense.
I think it is a helpful.
And good
document.
information for us. I couldn't have told you where we're at. Sheriff vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have saw this when I first came on.
So we can do that after the fact.
Sweet.
Okay.
Right, that's all I have as far as the budget.
I move we accept the budget as proposed by our finance director.
Contingent upon some of the changes we
Changes
With the changes.
Yeah.
With the changes as discussed.
Because it has to be done today, right?
We need to vote on.
We have to, we don't meet until it's too late.
So I take your motion was to accept the budget
As
with
presented
the
by, with the changes that we've discussed.
second.
Boys are pretty brave today.
Any discussion, other.
Just we'll point
Make
out.
sure you take out all the OEM
Take
budget.
out
That's
all
what
of
we
that. That's
discussed.
part of the, yeah, contingent there.
But I found a grant, so comment.
Okay,
I
so
do want to publicly commend Braden. I know he's put a lot of hours after 4 o'clock on this deal. And I just appreciate your work. I know it's probably been overwhelming at times, but I think we ended up with a product that certainly was easy for me to understand and read. And I think if the public pulls this up, it should make sense to them as well. I think spending that money on CIC was a smart decision on behalf of the county, and part of it's reflected here, but
Forced by them.
did a great job.
And
I
how
agree.
much did you learn through the process?
oh, yeah. Yeah, learned a
He
lot.
probably owes for learning all that.
Frank's got a question.
Well, it's before Braden leaves. I have this is really an attorney item I needed to bring up, but since he's here, I'd like to bring it up just real quick. As yesterday, I mentioned the attorney we sent the invoice to for the landfill bill, and I never got any response on that. And I don't know if Braden got a copy of that invoice or not, that it was for $246 from landfill, but we can certainly get it to you. But I sent it out, I think on August, September 1, something like that, November 1, I don't remember, but there was never any response at all. And I was wondering if your office would follow up on that, because it's an invoice that's overdue now. But if you never saw it, you wouldn't even know that it's something that is due.
They owe us.
They owe us.
You know what he's talking about? So we hauled a bunch of trash from an eviction
Oh,
property.
what was discussed yesterday.
Yeah. And that's what it's for. And you did send an invoice to them.
I sent the letter, I think I gave it to
Right.
Tina to
You did,
send.
and I
She sent
mailed
it
it out
out,
that same day.
and it never came back.
What was
that like November 1st? something like that?
247.
Well, it's been a while ago.
Yeah,
Can you forward that?
I should.
Because I guess I don't, if I'm not gonna get the courtesy of any kind of a response, but he just thinks he can blow it off, I'd like your office to follow up. The other thing is, since he's the attorney for Human Services, he submits, I'm assuming, I don't know, does it come through you or not, his monthly, whatever his contractual agreement is, or for that matter.
Goes through HR or
You're
Human
talking about
Services.
Human Services?
I'm sorry, what did I see? Human Services,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we
And
consider that.
he does that, and I also understand that he submits, his an invoice or a request for reimbursement for mileage and things like that. And I don't know whether it would be possible to just, take it out of that, by a motion of the county commissioners to say, when you're approving, payment of bills and everything, you could say, we'll just take the 246 out of here. I don't know if that's even possible, but
So the attorney you're talking about is the attorney for Human
that's
Services?
my understanding. Isn't Dan Slater is the attorney for?
I
Yeah,
don't know.
he is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's the attorney that you had billed to.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's the one.
We twisted his financial arm.
So you can follow up.
Yeah.
All right, let's vote on the
No, I'm
motion.
sorry, I thought you were all finished. I didn't mean to.
Who seconded that?
That would have been Kevin Day.
If I can, real quick. Page 9, I'm adding 492. I want to make sure it's on the record. $492,200 added to the revenue for ARPA. 492,200 plus what has not been spent this year added to the expenses. Changing the Haga amount to the 57 as it's listed in lease balances. And then checking up on the sheriff vehicle, if there's a sheriff vehicle missing, as well as the landfill revenue. Okay, did I miss anything?
Yeah, and I think that sheriff's vehicle was probably the one he ordered and never got.
Yeah, maybe 10 days.
They haven't even,
And then I've been squealing already. All in favor, say aye, Tom.
aye,
Kevin,
Aye.
you chose not to ask for public comment.
Kanda, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That being said, I have two resolutions now that have to be signed.
Before I got Clint involved.
Before you look, so there was his resolution of 22, so are those 23 and 24 or?
I do have 22 and 23 here.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay,
Because,
so then
That was
his
dropped,
comes through,
right?
will change. it.
okay,
Okay,
perfect.
that's what I wanted to
Thank
make
you.
sure.
I was hoping that would work that way.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
So you want me to read this? Would you like? Okay. So resolution number 2122 is a resolution summarizing expenditures and revenues for each year, for each fund, and adopting a budget for Custer County, Colorado for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2022 and ending on the last day of December 2022. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Custer County has appointed Braden M. Wilson as budget officer to prepare and submit a proposed budget to said governing body at the proper time. And whereas Braden M. Wilson has submitted a proposed budget to the governing body on October 18th, 2021, and whereas upon due and proper notice published in accordance with the law, said proposed budget was open for inspection by the public at a designated place, and interested taxpayers were given the opportunity to file or register any objections to said proposed budget. And whereas whatever increases may have been made in expenditures, like increases, were added to the revenues or planned to be expanded from fund balances so that the budget remains in balance as required by law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Custer County, Colorado, that the budget as submitted, amended, and summarized by fund hereby is approved and adopted as the budget of Custer County for the year stated above, and that the budget hereby approved and adopted shall be signed by the Board of County Commissioners and made a part of the public records of Custer County, adopted this 8th day of December 80, 2021.
good, thank you.
Does this get attached to the budget as well? Isn't it?
It was not previously. There is another signed paper for the budget, and then this resolution, I guess, just supports
Yeah,
that.
you got the signature page on the
It
budget.
gets recorded.
Okay.
Well, we need to sign that for
So I would move to adopt resolution 21-22, resolution to adopt budget.
Second.
Okay, then moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 2122, resolution to adopt the budget. Any public discussion?
We can just use one of these as the,
I got it. Well, we can use one of these. I'm sorry, I was looking at this one too. Any other discussion? Hear any? All in favor of adopting resolution 2122, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom? Aye. Kanda, aye. So,
And this is resolution number 2123. Resolution to appropriate sums of money. A resolution appropriating sums of money to the various funds in the amount and for the purposes set forth below for Custer County, Colorado for the 2022 budget year. Whereas the county commissioners have adopted the annual budget in accordance with the local government budget law on December 8th, 2021, and whereas the county commissioners have made provisions therein for revenues in an amount equal to or greater than the total proposed expenditures as set forth in said budget, and whereas it is not only required by law, but also necessary to appropriate the revenues and fund balances provided in the budget to and for the purposes described below, thereby establishing a limitation on expenditures for the operations of Custer County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Custer County, Colorado, that the following sums are hereby appropriated from the revenues of each fund to each fund, for the purposes stated. General Fund, $5,802,135. Road and Bridge Fund, $2,570,271. Contingent Fund, $0. Insurance Fund, $221,500. Conservation Trust Fund, $43,800. Capital Improvement Fund, $636,257. Lodging and Tourism Fund, $65,000. Emergency Services Fund, $317,987. Airport Fund, $83,750. And Human Services Fund, $897,000.
Hey, I move we accept resolution 2123, a resolution appropriate sums of money as presented, as read.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hear any? Therefore, let's vote. All in favor of adopting resolution 2123, Tom,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Kanda, aye.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Now you can go home.
It's been real, it's been fun. It's been real fun.
Next year.
Yeah.
We're starting next month for next year.
Do you sign several things?
Yeah, we can keep a copy and
We
give him the other one.
need one.
I know you only need one.
I was,
Yeah,
Or you were gonna frame it
he can frame it.
as your first budgetary resolution, like in memory or something.
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Okay, moving on here while he's bailing out. We got two other things before we go into executive session here, couple. Finally. First is we need to sign this request for the Custer County on the solid waste regulations is Brian. Custer County landfill, as he had asked us to do yesterday, and we said we would approve it today.
This is part of the discussion.
That's this one.
Two copies and then assigned.
I started it, but I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Did we vote on this yet?
No, I knew what we were voting on.
Thank you.
You don't want this.
He had to sign all.
Even though it's not on the
That one's
agenda,
Brady's.
I would move that we approve the financial assurance
This one here. he's-
agreement.
Okay, I'll second
For the
that. To approve the financial assurance, what's it called?
The contract.
Contract
Financial assurance contract.
for the landfill.
landfill.
So I move that.
Okay.